We all want to go back to how things were, but we can't. That's just life. This quote refers to how we long for the past and wish we could go back to the good old days. This is from the movie Forrest Gump of 1994. Often considered important film, often considered revolutionary. But is it? These type of movies are considered classics. Opening to the topic, revisiting the past, 80s and 90s movies change perception. Good afternoon, my name is Martin Andrade, and my research question is, to what extent does nostalgia affect the perspective Americans born after 2000s have on 80s and 90s movies? The answer? Movies from that era are filled with an emotional value given by different types of nostalgia, different types of reviews, and filmmaking, changing our judgment and objective view we have on them, making us think that they're better than what they actually are. For some background, often referred to as the blockbuster era of cinema, the 80s and 90s are filled with movies that we enjoy and love till this day. Jay Harrington from the University of Mississippi states that a movie can be considered a blockbuster when it has a huge production budget and a big marketing campaign. And movies from the 80s and 90s are filled with this type of movies. Some examples are the Star Wars franchise by George Lucas and Jaws by Steven Spielberg, two franchises that are still beloved till this day. On the other hand, when compared to contemporary films, one must ask, are these movies truly as good and compelling as we remember them? Is it possible that nostalgia is changing our view and our objective analysis that we have on them? Johan Norberg, on the Stimulus False Nostalgia, states that anchoring our identity in something enduring helps us when all that is solid seems to be melting into air, meaning that we cling into nostalgia when things from now don't seem as good as we want them to be, which make 80s and 90s movies as comforting as they can be. As we can observe in the graph, a study was done by the research facility GWI, where over 6,000 participants were asked which type of media caused them more nostalgia. And 71% of them stated that nostalgia was that movies were the #1 trigger of nostalgia. But what exactly is nostalgia? Cambridge Dictionary defines nostalgia as a feeling of pleasure and also slight sadness when thinking about the past. Nostalgia is a feeling that redefines how we think about ourselves and the world around us. Johan Norberg also states, again in the Stimulus False Nostalgia, that there are 3 different types of it: personal, historic, and collective nostalgia. Personal nostalgia refers to our personal experiences and different memories that we've had. Mark A. Slavik, an associate professor from Grandview University, states that this is the strongest type of nostalgia. This is presented in movies that we haven't seen in a really long time or since we were kids, such as in the movie Toy Story. The second type of nostalgia is historic nostalgia. It's dated for a time before one was born. It presents problems of how we face problems as a society back then and how we face different ones now. It is presented in movies such as Back to the Future, where problems were presented back before one was born and different ones in the present. Finally, there's collective nostalgia, a nostalgia that is shared among a group of people, where the original experience was shared among family and our friends. It is presented in movies such as Star Wars, where it was watched with a community and a large group of fans. In addition, reviews also change the perspective we have on different types of movies. An article published by the International Journal of Progressive Research in Engineering, Management, and Science. Film criticism has traditionally played an important role in shaping audience opinions, influencing discourse, and affecting film success. They also state that review aggregators such as Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and Metacritic have become powerful gatekeepers in shaping audience opinions and industry behavior. These type of platforms have both reviews done by critics and viewers alike. As viewers are presented to more online content and different opinions of different audiences, the reviews become harsher. As we can observe, Rotten Tomatoes reviews have decreased over time. This is because there have been more reviews and they have become harsher. By the other hand, the 80s and 90s movies didn't have that much reviews. The exposure audiences had when watching movies to reviews was bare minimum. The reviews were posted in newspaper and in magazines, such as here, presented in an article by the New York Daily of 1982, reviewing the movie E.T. The reviews were done mostly by professional critics, so that they had their own personal viewing experience and what they thought personally of the movie. To add on, filmmaking also makes an impactful role on how we perceive the movie itself. Back in the 80s and 90s, films were presented in were filmed in celluloid film. And the dominant home video system to watch them was VHS, for which audiences would go buy or rent a movie and then watch it home, making the movie watching experience completely different to what it is today. And even though audiences today cannot relate directly to that, they can, when watching 80s and 90s films, they can sense a feeling of warmth and comfort when watching them. To differentiate, movies from the present are filmed in a digital format, which make them have higher quality and better special effects, making us have higher expectations from it, and making us judge them harsher. This gives movies from the 80s and 90s a certain amount of respect that movies today cannot receive. Not because they're objectively better, but because the 80s and 90s movies appeal to the emotional and psychological inclination of the viewer. Some limitations are, each of us have our own individual experiences when watching movies, our own opinions and what each of us like, for which even though nostalgia plays a big role in what we think, it does not determine if the movie is good or bad itself. It just makes it more appealing. In conclusion, some factors influencing 90s and 80s films are the different types of nostalgia, whether it's personal, historic, or collective, the different types of reviews, nowadays being online and with different platforms, and done by viewers, and the different format of the movies, as we have higher expectations from it now that technology had advanced so much. Thank you.
All right, Martin, 2 questions for you. First up, what evidence did you gather that you didn't use, and then why didn't you use it?
Some evidence that I gathered that I did not use was the different genres of films and how they affected the audience and the viewers. I did not use it because it drifted from the original topic that was nostalgia. Nostalgia was the main feeling that I wanted to focus on, and referring to the different types of feelings that were related to different genres would have drifted from that.
All right. And if you had more time, what additional research would you have conducted on this issue?
If I had more time, I would have conducted research in something called imaginative past. That is how audiences think of a fantasized past and how we wish we could go back to that. I would have considered more research on that and how they find it more appealing.